And good evening, everyone. Welcome to Pro Synth Network Live Episode 5. Apologies for the delay. It looks like we're about 17 minutes behind. We had a few technical issues, so hopefully everything will be okay. So do tell us in the chat room if anything is causing you an issue, if any of our microphones are too hot or too cold. That would be great, and we'll crack on with the show as per. And it was just going to be a twofer today between myself and Ben, but due to unforeseen circumstances on another stream that was going to keep our friend Cryss away from us this week, he's been able to join us. So let's say hi to Cryss. Here he is with his fingers in his Floyd t-shirt. How are you, mate?
Doing well.
Excellent.
Join you guys today.
Sorry?
I said glad to join you guys today.
And glad that you're here. It's I was looking forward to just me and Ben, but a threesome's always better than a twosome. So
they say.
I would never know. Anyway, enough of that. How have you been, Cryss? What have you been up to this week?
Well, I've been busy working on some demos, and I lent one of my good friends my Juno 106, and he just lent me his Prophet 6. I think I told you guys about it last week, so I've had a couple of days to get started with making patches for the Prophet, so it's been fun.
That's a fair trade, I'd say. Yeah. Just hope he forgets, maybe, and you get to keep the Prophet, maybe. I don't know. It's, to be honest, I've never touched a Prophet 6. Is it? Would you swap it for a Juno?
That's tough. In my collection, it would make sense to keep the Juno, but if you were to buy one synthesizer, then I would say probably the Prophet 6 is a better choice than the Juno.
Right.
It's a little more versatile, but both of them are fantastic sounding.
Cool. Excellent. Well, glad you could join us, and let's now move to the north of England, where we join our very own kind of illustrious leader, the guy who started it all. Let me just make sure his camera's the right size before I switch over to him. Good evening, Ben.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Good.
Good. And what have you been up to this week? Anything fun?
Same for me. I'm still working on that short movie thing.
Yes.
The film's only about 2 minutes long, and I put about 3 weeks into it so far, but I'm quite happy with the way it's going. So I'll put a link to that when it's finished in the group, and you can all have a laugh at what I've done.
No, please do. It's always good to hear our what everyone gets up to. So I'm just having some problems with. Last week was absolutely flawless, and this week we seem to be beset with issues. The whole cam thing's doing its resizing issue, which I just resized Cryss because Cryss went all big and took it, and then now Ben's doing it, and it's just it's terrible. You can see what we're up against here.
We've gone big into head.
Yeah, it's just very strange. I have no idea why it does this sometimes and not other times, but such is the drawbacks of using kind of free software. But it looks like we've been doing okay, so I guess we due some gremlins. Anyway, so what's been going on in the world of synthesis and synthesizers and synthesists? Not a huge amount, really, is there? There seems to be a very kind of obviously, for obvious reasons, things have kind of slowed down. There's not been a huge amount of news out there. Anything that you guys have picked up on over the last 7 days that you think might be worth a mention?
Go ahead, Ben.
I'm scared of encroaching onto the topic.
Yeah, because we haven't got many.
Yeah.
Well, we've got some interesting topics in terms of that are non-news related.
Yeah, I noticed somebody had posted on the in the Pro Synth network before. It's like a competition, Spitfire Audio, and
oh yes.
It's composed the music for a scene in Westworld.
Yes.
And I don't know if they're going to use the music that you compose for this particular scene, but the prizes are pretty decent. It's,
you win all of their library, don't you? I think.
Yeah, the full mega doodah.
Yeah,
whatever it's called.
And the mega doodah is pretty mega. It's from what I recall. I mean, I use I have BBC Symphony Orchestra, which is just amazing. It's so you kind of have to know your stuff, and I don't. So I'm just really sort of learning how to use all the different playing styles and techniques and what have you. But their stuff is just incredible. The prizes. Unfortunately, my Facebook page where all that news was coming from has decided to freeze up. But the prizes, I think, is every single Spitfire audio library, and I don't know. Like you said, I don't know whether your material gets used in a thing, or whether you get a commission or something. But somebody posted it in our little group, and I thought it was actually quite pertinent. So obviously, we call ourselves the Pro Synth Network because we're looking at professional people, not just big names or artists or anything like that, but the people that make a living or have this as their main source of income or a partial source of income. And one of our members said that not everyone in our group is a professional in terms of making a living out of the music, which is why they hope that the professionals amongst us won't take part in this Spitfire competition, which is, that they themselves admitted it might be a provocative thing to say, but I thought that was, an interesting take on it, because do we want professional people looking at this as maybe their way in to get noticed, or should we just leave this open to those of us who don't have that sort of experience and skill?
I think I partially fund my life through music and partially through a day job, so I reckon it's fair game if I have a go with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's that I want to get into. But I'd be a bit gutted if Hans Zimmer turned his hand to it. That's a bit. I don't know. I don't think he should.
Yeah.
He can afford quiet.
Well, exactly. He can actually get a proper choir in, can't he? And all of that. No, it's I think it's it's a pertinent point that these sort of things should be aimed at those of us who haven't got that foothold in. What do you think, Cryss?
Well, I don't think there's a need for, say like a Hans Zimmer to do this because he's got so many other things going on himself, and perhaps those that are currently making a living at this have their hands full already. At least we hope. These times it's been a little bit tougher, but I have made my living from the guitar in the past, and so I know it's like to do that and have that be my main thing. And now it's music as a part, just a small income right now. So I don't know. I don't think there's really a problem there, because I don't believe those people that would blow us out of the water with their incredible composition and rigs would be entering that. Yeah,
no, I think you're right. I think somebody said that I could understand that point of view. Imagine if Ty Unwin entered. I mean, it absolutely blow us out of the water. To be honest, knowing that people like Ty Unwin and Hans Zimmer and Lorne Balfe and all of those, those great kind of composers that might, do that, they're probably way too busy. Even if they wanted to enter, they probably couldn't. But I just thought that was an interesting, thing. I know that Hans is a member of our group, and so maybe he'll chip in at some point and say, "Oh yes, I'm actually entering, and here it is." No, but what a great opportunity if you want to learn to score to film. Here's a great opportunity if you have a crack at it. That's quite. To be honest, I haven't even looked at the details. and I probably wouldn't have the time or the skill to do anything that's worth justice. But yeah, I mean, I could bring my BBC Symphony Orchestra to bear on it, and it would probably sound absolutely awful. Talking of which, did you also see Thomas Dolby had a play with BBC Symphony Orchestra library and transcribed some of Mahler's, I forget which piece of work it was, just using BBC Symphony. I think I posted a link up in on the Facebook group, and it was if you're able to transcribe a composition into Logic, or I don't know whether he transcribed it or just played it, but it just close your eyes and you would struggle to tell the difference between an actual orchestra and this sample of an actual orchestra. It's just so good. And he even put a video. He found a video of a real live orchestra playing where the camera is focused on the conductress, and he had her as his basically his metronome. So he had the video, and he used her conducting as the, which I thought was very clever. He's a very clever man.
That's a bit too clever.
Yes, but then that's Thomas Dolby.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so yeah, if you're that way inclined, go over to Spitfire Audio, and I believe on Thursday, Spitfire have got an announcement. They've sent a couple of teaser emails out, and the graphic for the email. Let me see if I can bring this up while we're on air. So the graphic for the email looks like a diagram for an orchestra setup, and with this one little extra bit at the back, and I just wonder if they're going to add percussion to the BBC Symphony Orchestra.
That'd be good.
Yeah, because that's one of the things that it is not necessarily weak on, but trying to see if I can find. They send all this stuff out, but they don't have any links on their website to the stuff that they were linking to. But yeah, it looks like they might be adding another section to the BBC Symphony Orchestra. And knowing Spitfire, I wouldn't be at all surprised if that was a free update for all registered users, which would be nice, because they're like that. They're very very nice people. Do any of you guys use Spitfire Audio sample libraries?
No, I was just thinking then. I mean, I'm trying to use like bits of hardware I've got here and cobbling together like a Roland Phantom violin with a a Triton oboe, and I'm thinking I need to invest in this stuff really. If I'm serious,
yeah,
it's something I need to look at, isn't it?
The one thing I really like about BBC Symphony Orchestra is that they kind of created. Here you go. I've just found the thing. So yeah, they've kind of created this this package that they are pushing or trying to market as a standard for orchestral libraries. So they're really trying to say to everyone, look, if everybody buys this and uses this, we can all collaborate and get the same effect. And because the BBC Symphony Orchestra is one of the greatest symphony orchestras in the world, then what a great standard to have. And the fact that sampling process that they used was one of the last performances in the Maida Vale studio, which has been the BBC SO's home for decades, and because they're moving up to Manchester, and because they're levelling the whole Maida Vale studio and building accommodation. Such is the way. But yeah, this is the graphic. It says May 7, and it just has this symbol, and it's this bit over here on the right hand side, which I think is the new additional bit. So a lot of people are speculating that the percussion section is coming up to BBC, or it might be to one of their other products. But yeah, that looks interesting. I think that'll be interesting to see. And yeah, if it's a free update, even better. And yeah, where's the West World? Here we go. So yeah, Westworld scoring competition. Judged by the show's creator, score a scene from Westworld 3 for your chance to win some amazing prizes. And turn that off there. So here we go. Yeah, Westworld. Here's the sequence. Win every Spitfire audio library worth over $20,000. 2.5 terabytes of sounds. And it's on the Everything Drive.
That's it.
Yeah, look at that. Ooh, that's nice, isn't it? So, how to enter: download the car chase sequence, watch Paul's getting started video. When you've completed your queue, upload it to YouTube account and tag it with this tag, and then complete the form. And begins May 3rd, so that's today, and closes June 3rd. So that's tasty. Even if you don't, even if you don't submit it, that's surely something to play with and learn from. Trying to score.
I particularly like the idea that they're showing you how to set up your DAW ready for like working with movies. That's a really good gesture. To make sure it's right.
Yeah.
And I suppose that you could, even if you get nowhere in it, you've got another piece in your portfolio, haven't you, as well?
Yeah.
They're not going to stop you from using that clip in your portfolio, I don't think.
Exactly, yeah. It's always good. I was going to say something else, just completely gone out of my head. How good is that? It's because I'll tell you what it is. It's because I'm trying to read the chat and try and keep up there. But yeah, that's it. You were talking about setting things up. The other great thing that Spitfire have done is this. I'm trying to find it now. They've actually set up a page exclusively for BBC Synth. Well, not exclusively for, but everyone can join in. But they provide downloadable templates for all the main DAWs, so you can download the template, and as long as your library's installed, it will bring all the instruments up into groups and subgroups, and so it's brilliant. It's just lots of caring and sharing in the Spitfire world.
Yeah, I like that.
Which I think is very good. So yeah, go along to spitfireaudio.com for more information about that. Right, so we're slightly bereft of news topics, as most of these shows have found over the last few weeks for obvious reasons. But we did sort of have a discussion earlier on today about what we might discuss here. So let's see. There were 4 things that we came up with. So let's go through them one by one. So Ben, you made a suggestion here about hybrid synthesizers. For example, the new Roland Phantom has analog filters, but the new Jupiter doesn't, and you think that might be a strange decision. And do you want to kind of elaborate slightly?
I just think unless Roland either believes that one is better than the other or doesn't, so which is getting which? Is Roland so confident now with its digital filters that it puts them on the flagship synth, the Jupiter, but on the flagship workstation it puts an analog filter on it? I think that the analog filter is going to be better.
So is it an actual proper analog filter?
As far as I'm aware, yeah. It's
Which version of the Phantom is this, just so I can find it?
I mean, I might be talking a load of nonsense here, and it's not an analog filter at all. But I thought I'd heard it was an analog filter, and then I'm just quite surprised by that. Like, the Jupiter seems more of a benefit from an analog filter, and the Phantom is digital.
If you're going to trade off the analog history of the whole Jupiter thing, then surely you should, put that that filter in there. So I'm getting distracted again because I'm having to manage this bloody video resizing issue that we have.
I was just wondering, like, what people thought of digital filters now? Because they have come a long way, haven't they?
Yeah.
I mean, the filters, I've heard the filters in the tubes, and they do actually sound pretty good. And you can switch from one type of a filter to another because it's all emulated. So, is that the future? Is digital filters the future, or will they never sound as good as an analog?
Cryss, you're a big Roland guy. What's your thoughts?
I mean, one of the problems that I think Roland has is they don't really have a very cohesive outlook for their synthesizers. They're kind of heading in different directions at different times. I mean, are we doing analog? Are we doing digital? We don't chase analog ghosts, except for that we do, that kind of thing. There's some great digital filters. I really like the filters on my System 8, which I turned off because I got synthesizer shamed on the chat. I'm not carrying that with me. I'm going to let it go. But I mean, there's some really great digital filters, or Diva, Zebra, those synths, or what do you guys call it? Zebra?
Yeah.
HZ.
Yeah.
So there's some really great sounding stuff. It does seem kind of odd. It seems very gimmicky on something like a Phantom. Now, I kind of like the idea of the Super 6 and the Summit, where you have digital oscillators that can be virtual analog, plus they can do all sorts of other stuff like wavetables. But then you have your analog mixer, VCAs, filters, everything else an analog path. And that seems to be a very versatile way to do it, and something that really has merit rather than just kind of tacking on, we have analog filters.
Well, I'm kind of confused. I don't know whether anybody in the chat room would know. But I presume the Jupiter X, I know it's like a synth with multi-patches and that as well, but I'd put that more as a performance thing for me. That's a performance synth, and the Phantom's a workstation to go away and work on stuff. I know there's different uses, but if you've got an analog filter on a workstation, does it just get used by the first sound that you put it on, and then it's not available for the others? I don't.
Yeah,
It'd have to have like multiple analog filters, wouldn't it?
I'm looking at the specs here on the Roland website, and it says sound generator, Zen Core, and V Piano Tech, and then down here analog filter, stereo type. So you got 3 low pass, high pass, band pass, bypass, underpass. No, sorry, this is ultra Vox track, or underpants as we used to shout at the gigs. Drive and amp. So it looks like it's a genuine analog filter. How does it? Yeah, how does that work? I'm not a Phantom aficionado. I'm not a workstation aficionado. Period. Really. So it's interesting, but like you say, it's interesting they put an analog filter on a workstation, which is intrinsically a digital thing.
Yeah,
but not on the synth that's trading off of that name.
Marshall's also saying that he doesn't understand how it would work on a workstation too.
Yeah.
I think the implementation of it would have to be different. Whereas if you have, say, like a Prophet or a Juno, your filter knobs control a filter, but that's really 6 articulated paths, where you're not going to have that on something like, I know the Quantum has analog filters, or the Phantom. You'll probably just have stereo filters, which all the voices are fed. You'll maintain the stereo field of it, but they'll all be, all the right side will be fed through right filter and left filter, and that's it. Yeah. Which is just not the way that it's normally done on a polysynth, an analog polysynth. So
yeah. Okay.
Interesting. Yeah, but
I'm just looking at some of the comments.
I mean, has that new Phantom has that dropped yet? Is that out there? I know.
I think so. Yeah. I was watching Ed Diaz. He was on Sonic State, and he was given a demo of it. It seemed pretty much the same as the other Phantoms. It just looks different to me. I like the way that it works in it's in the same mode all the time. But I quite like that. So the old Phantoms would have like a studio mode and a live mode and probably a recording mode or something.
Right.
You had to switch it into these different modes for the particular task you were doing, and I think that's just daft.
Yeah.
The machine should be able to do that for you.
Yeah. My experience with workstations is limited to the Alesis Fusion, which was completely different to every other workstation out there and did things in its own unique way. So I the one thing I didn't like was all these different modes. You had song mode, you had mix mode, you had performance mode, you had sampling, and it was just kind of trying to get my head round what mode do I want to be using, and I've never been a workstation person, although I lusted after some of the finest early workstations like the M1 and stuff. It was more about the sound than it was about the ability. But then I made a decision some years ago never to get rid of the Fusion, mostly because I thought, well, if somebody comes in here and my Mac blows up or my Mac gets stolen, at least if I have a workstation, I can still make multi-track music. So I've kind of held onto it mostly for that.
Something like the Prophet X would have appealed to me more in that it has those kind of sampled sounds and working with the analog filters. But yeah, I've never been one that has thought that the being able to create whole tracks on a workstation was a good idea. Like, that's not a feature for me.
Yeah.
No,
it's diversity, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not it all coming from one place.
I totally get that.
Yeah.
But then saying that, when you've got a workstation and some, there have been other workstations, but the Fusion was, the only one I can refer to because of the only one I have experience of, that has multiple synthesis engines. That seems to be a bit more useful because you can take samples and you can take analog synthesis or virtual analog synthesis and modeling and whatever else there might be, and the motifs. And I'm sure the Roland's probably had something similar where you could have plug-in cards and that would expand the functionality. So in some ways, even if you didn't want to use it as an all-in-one, composing box, you could, it was multifunctional in terms of the synthesis. So you could just, here's one keyboard that does modeling, analog, digital, sampling, in one place. So for me, that's probably where the benefit was.
Yeah, I think you're right, definitely. Sorry, Chris.
Oh, that's right. Well, here's an interesting topic. I mean, Asio Head says, I feel like there's a class of generations
Just saw that.
now. They need someone with a bit of vision and follow it up. And, topic of conversation, we've seen, we are seeing companies like Roland and perhaps, like the Japanese companies in particular, large companies, not a whole lot of like singular vision in what they're doing. Now they got a lot of resources versus we've been seeing some companies and have for a long time that are a little more singularly led, whether it's a small company like Dave Smith or what's his name? Is his name George Burns over at UDO, where you have one particular person that has a really strong vision and they're working towards that goal. For better or for worse, and versus a company that's a little bit, more broadly distributed in its power. And maybe the more direct comparison would be, say you have Behringer, where again there's a person, even though it's a large company like Yamaha or Korg, they have a much stronger vision, like you would with UDO and Dave Smith versus Korg, Yamaha, Roland. What do you think about that?
Do you know, it's funny because I saw Ashley Head's comment there and the clash of generations and maybe somebody with a bit of vision to follow it up. Do you possibly think that Roland has lost its way since Takahashi-san passed away, because I can't remember how many years ago that was. I don't remember how much input he was having, towards the end of his life, whether he'd kind of taken a back seat. But certainly with the Japanese culture, and I am not steeped in it as much, say, as somebody like Torsten might be. But there's a lot of respect and a lot of people trying to follow the teachings of their great leader, shall we say. And once he'd gone, was there maybe a sense of, well, now the big guy's gone, we can maybe just do some cool and funky stuff, and it all kind of has gotten a bit out of hand, because the one thing that a lot of people say frequently is that Roland was this once great leader of synthesizer development and innovation. But now they seem to have lost their way, and nobody seems to can't put their finger on what it is exactly. It's very odd.
They don't seem to make many products now as well. It's like, there's like, you'd think that there'd be a full range of synthesizers going from entry level to, and all quite new,
I think they've
all released in the last 2 years. They've got stuff in the, it seems so they've got stuff in their catalogue that's like 8 years old and stuff now.
Yeah, and I also think they've diversified. And maybe that's a business decision. They have to diversify to stay afloat, to keep, while some markets are shrinking, others are expanding. But I tend to see a lot of Roland seem to be very thinly spread. We're seeing these, and they're supposedly very good video mixers. And you look at their catalogue here on screen. They've got their piano range is still quite substantial, as are their organs. But maybe the synthesizer market, they seem to have
it's been interesting what they've chosen to highlight. Of course, they own Boss effects pedals.
Yep.
And for years, people have been asking, why don't you release some of the great ones of the past? Probably one of the ones that would be first on the list would be the Dimension C. Like, great multi-LFO chorus pedal, just gorgeous sounding. Like, why don't they release it? Well, they finally, after what was the Roland head guy's name?
Takahashi.
Yeah, after he died, because he was, as I understand, and perhaps I have the person wrong, but I thought it was him anyway. They're saying that they, we don't want to go back, we don't want to revisit those. If we're not making it, we're going to, currently like a Super Overdrive or something, we're not going to go back. But then after he passed, then they decided to do the Waza line, and now they're revisiting. Okay, we got the DM2 analog delay and the Dimension C and these classic. I think they even did like. Just not made in very high numbers and kind of an unusual pedal, but people are being able to get a hold of these again, which at the time it seems like that was a good move of looking back to the past. But then in the recent years, since I've been more interested in synthesizers, it's let's get into analog, but we'll do this weird hybrid that nobody's really happy about.
Yeah.
Like was that one the JDX-A and I, right?
Yeah.
I know there's some people that really love them, and I haven't played one. I played one briefly, but for the most part, it didn't seem to have the resonance with the general synth community. Like, there is, again, no real direction. Like, we want to do analog stuff, but we're going to do it digitally, and it's a really confused. And then when people start really liking something like the System 8, despite its shortcomings, then it's like, well, where's that gone? Or we're getting into Cloud, but where are the new legendary synths? And I know I've talked that to death, but it just seemed kind of odd to me.
Yeah, Wagyu says that, in the chat room, Roland need to spin off Roland Classic Team to concentrate on their great legacy and doing that right. So normal Roland can just do future stuff, which they always say they're focused on. And that's a fair point. I know I've seen other businesses in other markets, not necessarily synthesizers, but they've said, okay, well, look, let's dedicate a team to doing that stuff. whereas the main core of the business wants to push ahead and do the cool stuff. But
there's definitely for it. I mean, look at the Boss pedal line. I mean, you've got their Waza stuff, which is very vintage, bringing back the classics with better features. And then they have their multi, kind of Strymon style pedals that are very, here's all the features. We're heading to the future. Look what we can do, kind of stuff. And they're for both of those stuff. But like you said, if you could have it can be Roland that have marketing kind of separate them out a little bit. Do you like to look towards the future in this, or do you want the classic sounds of the past, but not the kind of weird mishmash that they have going on now?
I wonder, because I still have my fingers in the corporate world through my day job, and I see what's happening because of everything that's going on in the world at the moment this year, and I wonder if we will see a reset where people's incomes are clearly shrinking. Maybe people are spending less money, although I heard somewhere, I think it was earlier this week, that there's been a spike in music technology purchasing over the last couple of months because people just want to do stuff at home, and so let's spend the extra bits. But my employers are now, they've held off, and they're now saying we might have to lay people off. So that's always a bit disconcerting. And now I'm thinking, okay, well, that synth I was thinking about buying, maybe I just won't until I know I'm not going to be laid off.
Yeah, that's going to be common, isn't it?
Yeah, and I just wonder whether that, as that kind of stuff sweeps across the land, across the globe, people are going to stop buying, or they're going to be buying less. And maybe that'll force these people to rethink, well, hang on, this is what people actually want, and they would be prepared to spend money on, so maybe we should look at these things. I don't know. I
think it's hit musicians really where it hurts, hasn't it? Because you can't, like myself, I've got a day job and I've got Electro 80s, but the Electro 80s income has been completely taken away from me. So I can't buy anything. And then there's all levels. You got the keyboard player who plays for, I don't know, Dua Lipa. He can't go out gigging at the minute, or she can't go out gigging at the minute. So all levels of this are actually really suffering financially at the minute. But you might have a couple of million in the bank from your previous successes, but if you haven't, then you're not really earning, are you? So you can't be spending.
No, that's very true. And this kind of brings us on to another aspect of this Roland discussion. We seem to be talking about them quite a bit over the last few weeks, but hey, it's there to talk about. So they've just launched, I believe, this the Roland Cloud Academy. Free online training sessions. Now this kind of interested me from two perspectives. One from a music technology, and second from a training or learning perspective, because that's my day job. I'm a trainer and an instructional designer, and my day job is designing online training. I used to do lots of stuff in the classroom, and now everybody doesn't want to travel. Everybody wants to sit in their office or at home learning. So this is why at the moment my job is fairly safe, because a lot of people want to do this. So it interests me there. But then the first thing that I kind of go, let's have a look at this, because is this part of Roland Cloud, which I'm a subscriber to? And it's not. And it's free online training for the Roland DJ controller series.
Yeah, it is at the moment.
Yeah, so this would not interest me at all, because I'm not a DJ and I don't own any of these modules. But it looks like an interesting thing.
Apparently, it's just starting off with the DJ gear, and then they're rolling it out to all the products.
Right, and would that be all the hardware products, or
do
you know? Or
I only know about hardware at the minute. I know that the Phantom and the Jupiter are going to be the first two hardware units that's covered by it.
Right, okay.
And I think it'd be nice if they did cover the software as well. I think that'd be pretty decent.
I mean, it's a good selling point. I mean, the business that I work for, we sell all sorts of products and solutions, and we have a partner network. So you can be a partner of our company if you sell X amount of our product a year, and you earn what we call partner points, and you get partner points for selling lots of stuff and doing other things. And one of the things is training. So if you take our certification courses and become a certified sales professional or a certified technical professional in our business, then you get extra partner points. And what do points make? They make prizes. And you get bonus, you get marketing investment, you get early access to products and solutions before anybody else will give you all this wonderful stuff. And so this seems to be like they're doing the same sort of thing. They're tying in, buy our products, get our training as well as an incentive to purchase, which I think is useful, because there's a lot of people, even today I see on the internet, people saying, I've just plugged all my MIDI stuff in and I'm not getting anything. There's no audio coming out of the MIDI. Or I've plugged the MIDI out of my synth to the MIDI out of my interface and I'm not getting anything happening. And I'm thinking, well, we were struggling with these issues in the 80s, and there are still people struggling with this stuff today. So, it's not that these people are stupid. It's just that there's maybe not enough accessible. There's not maybe sort of accessible learning out there that's tied to the product that they've just bought. So that's an interesting.
What I do like about it is apparently it's going to be like video chat based.
Okay.
So you've got the guy there showing you how to work the Jupiter X or whatever, but you've also got 15 people who are sitting in on that particular session.
Yeah.
And they can ask questions directly, and they might have a particular issue that's bothering them, and they can address it directly with an expert there.
Yeah.
Which I think is that is quite visionary to do that with your products.
Yeah. And it's a current trend in online learning. This kind of host. People used to have webinars, and like everybody would be on there, and you'd have an instructor, doing stuff on screen. But now, online classrooms, they've been around for a while, but they certainly are coming into their own, particularly at this time in our existence, because a lot of people are wanting to do that. But we used to run a lot of classes in classrooms. So I was flying around all over the world doing all these things, and now they're just bringing them back in house and doing it all online. And we've also got courses where we have very similar sort of thing, where the instructor's there and we have a specific environment, not just a webinar. We actually have a learning environment where people can interact with. Even got online breakout rooms, so you can send, if you've got 15 people, you can send 3 groups of 5 into these virtual breakout rooms. Just like, you remember when you used to go to a training course and they say, right, get into pairs or groups of 5, go next door, come up with your thing, and then present it to the class at the end. So it's the same sort of thing, but it's online. And so, we can pick these 5 people and push them all into these virtual breakout rooms, and then they can do their stuff there, and they only hear and see themselves, and then we bring them all back in. And so the technology now is fantastic. So to see that is very good. But I hope they broaden the perspective from just DJ controllers to the synthesizers. Chris, you're back in your seat. What do you think about this?
Someone who's proactive at that process. I noticed something about myself, in that, like, when I use Logic, so I use it fine, I do what I need to do, but there's usually something I need to know how to do. Like, I can think of it in my head, and I'm like, I need to kind of do this with it and then set it up this way, but I have no idea how to do that. And I'm more reactive in that way, like, okay, now I got to go figure out how to do this. And so then I go to YouTube and I find the channel which quickly shows me how to do that and how to set it up, and then I come back. Which, obviously this Roland stuff is not set up to be like that. But I'm wondering kind of what the breakdown of of those type of proactive learners would be towards reactive. I mean, there's some areas that I'm very proactive in learning and trying to figure out things, but I notice in some music stuff, I'm just like, I do with what I have to do until I need to do something else, and then I go try to find it.
Yeah.
It seemed to me that would probably be in music anyway, the bigger group of people.
Yeah. I'm interested. I mean, I like to see. I mean, I'm just looking through the course list here, and they have introductory, intermediate, and advanced, depending on the unit you've purchased. And you know, for example, with the DJ 707M, let me just bring this up on screen. With the 707M, you've got in the introductory course how to use it with Serato DJ. DJ 707M basics, beat grids, cue points, blah blah blah, and then the advanced course looks at synchronizations, hardware effects, slices, beat jumps, pitch and time, MIDI output, that kind of stuff. But that's kind of a broad thing, and I know that, you know, there's going to be loads of people with different levels of knowledge and experience, and in a live classroom situation, which according to this they're going to be between 60 and 90 minutes long and hosted on a regular basis, I just wondered whether they could complement this with a series of how to, you know, quick start, you know, guides, or how to do this particular function, so that maybe I know the 707 quite well, but I really do want to learn about pitch and time, for example. Do I want to sit through a 90-minute class just to get 10 minutes worth of information where I could just go off and do something individually? So it'd be nice if they expanded it and complemented it with, with other stuff.
Yeah, and that kind of goes along with what I'm saying, because, well, you know, I've been working with music stuff for, you know, decades now. So exactly what you said. Do I want to sit through 90 minutes? Probably not. But if you can show me the 3 things that I need to know how to do, and I can find those, you know, in 5-minute segments, then yeah, I'm going to go for it. And that's going to be a better use of my time rather than learning how a DAW works, which I don't need to know. Yeah,
absolutely. Because we, you know, again, that's something else that we get in the day job is, you know, people want to know very specific things, and our course is, you know, maybe 30, 45 minutes max. Online, because people really, their attention spans, you know, start to get very frayed around the edges after that duration. And we started about a year or two ago actually doing just little bite-sized videos. How do I want to do, you know, I want to do this, how do I do that, how do I do this, and then put those up onto YouTube, and they can just go and pick and choose. If they want the certification, yeah, they're going to have to sit through and do the whole thing. But it's an interesting, you know, development from Roland, a good one, a fairly positive one.
Yeah, my buddy that I, you know, swapped synthesizers with.
Oh yeah.
He and I have much different ways of working at it. Like where I said, I'm a little more the reactive. See, Marshall is as well. Like I need to find out some stuff, but I've been doing this for a long time, so I have like a framework of what I. At least, you know, as you begin to master something, you begin to have that sense of, I know what I don't know, and that's where I go find out. Whereas he's someone that has benefited from those type of courses. So he got into synthesizers really recently in the last year. And so I've been, you know, helping him out, showing him stuff. And, you know, he's a dentist, so he can buy whatever he wants. And he does very quickly. To my envy. But you know, he tells me like, hey, I just did this course on synthesis, and you know, I did the VCA module today, or did the LFO module today, and can you help me with this, because I'm still not understanding, you know, this or that. And I thought it was really interesting, because I would have never gone looking for that, you know, stuff. I mean, it's a course that he bought, but and helping him out because he has brought in more gear in a quick amount of time than he's able to use. So for him, that's something that can really get him going.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. Yeah. I was hoping that Apple would have put together a decent Logic course, because I just, you know, the last few months I've gotten into to Logic, and I actually had to go out and buy a course, an online course, although I got it at a significantly discounted rate because it was just as the whole virus thing was kicking in, and people, I think they jumped on the thing, and so I think I spent about $50 on a course that should have cost about, or they say about $1,800, but I can share it with my son, and my son's doing music technology as an exam course next year, so it's going to benefit him as well as myself. But again, Apple, I know Apple used to, I don't know if they still do Apple training sessions around the world, but actually, whilst we're here, I'm going to tap into the Hive Mind. I keep forgetting to transfer the cameras over, and Cryss has sat there nodding as I'm talking. And so, Hive Mind, this is one for you in the chat. I bought Logic Pro about 2 or 3 months ago, installed it, set all my hardware up, created templates so that I could just call up this one template and all my hardware would be there ready, and my favourite soft synths would be there ready for me to crack on and compose nothing for months. But anyway, it was all there and all set up, and everything was perfect. Okay, there was no problems, and I've got multiple MIDI interfaces, I've got mixers, and I've got audio interfaces, I've got USB MIDI, I've got all this stuff. It was all perfect, everything was working fine. About 3 weeks ago, I fired up Logic and I get an error message, and it says failure, and something along the lines of failure to initialize core MIDI. And I thought, what? Because core MIDI is a background service that runs within the OS and just make sure everything's talking. I said, what? So I clicked through, and obviously there was no MIDI functionality. So I shut it down. I thought, maybe it just had a hiccup, started it up. No, same error message. So I was a little bit concerned. I Google it, as one does, and it seems like this is a fairly common thing for Logic users. And the main solution is to fire up the MIDI Studio utility in Mac OS before you fire Logic up, because that the MIDI Studio initializes everything for you, and that's a workaround, and it's great. And actually what I've done now is I've just put the MIDI Studio as an auto start. Every time I boot the Mac, it starts in the background without me having to do anything to mess around. But I spoke to Apple support, and by the time I came off the call, I just wanted to put a gun to my head and just say, why did I bother spending over an hour or so? And the guy just told me basically to set up a new user on my system and move all my Logic files from this place to that place, and then start reinstalling things until I got that error. I was like, really? Okay, so I started to do it and then just thought, what the hell am I doing? But I let it go, and I created this new user and set everything up. I fired Logic up for the first time without me just adding anything in, still got the error message. So he tells me, it's something deep in the OS. Okay, well, it's your OS. Solution, please. But if you Google, fail to initialize core MIDI or whatever the error message is, it's a very common problem, and it just seems that it's a right pain in the ass. So what I wanted to ask was, after that long story, was has anybody else got these issues, and have they got a decent solution? I'm just looking at the chat there. So Wagyu says it's a trap to get musicians to upgrade to Catalina. Well, I'm already on Catalina and have been, for ages, because nothing that I have has any issues with Cat. I did hold off, but I went in and I used my MacBook to test things out, and it was all fine. So it's not a Catalina issue. I've got the latest version of Logic. It was all fine. Nothing changed. And it all just went. Now I get this. It's a tiny little thing, and I can use the system. I just have to start something else up to do that. But why should I have to do that?
I've not got Catalina on my iMac, but I've had the same issue. So it's It's not Catalina or whatever mine is.
It's
specific, it's
very
just
odd. Very odd.
I think that's not a bad solution, starting up the MIDI studio beforehand. Because everything's connected anyway. I was getting things grayed out in that.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I kept having to restart the machine until everything showed up. I don't know what was causing that, but that was really annoying.
Yeah.
Because if you didn't put the MIDI studio on and just went straight into your project, half of it was missing. The devices that are involved.
I had some issues with MIDI Studio some years ago, and certain things weren't being recognised, and then they were, and then it just, I think after an OS update, it was all fine again. But it's an odd one, and I just the general consensus online seems to be that when you fire Logic up, it goes off and it does this this process. So it looks for plugins that you've installed or removed since the last time, and then it will fire up the core audio service, and then fire up the core MIDI service. But apparently, so I don't know if this is the thing, but a lot of people say it's trying to do that process too fast, and so the core MIDI service hasn't got a chance to fire up before it's asked for it to be there for it. And that's why if you start the MIDI studio up beforehand, the service is running. So when you start Logic up, it's already there. So it does seem that would correlate. But hey, there you go.
No.
As Sasquatch has said, I thought the normal Apple solution to most problems is to splash out another $4,000 on new hardware. I've never spent £4,000 on new hardware. Although I have been thinking about getting a new iMac, because this one's about 6 or 7 years old.
Mine's ancient.
Yeah, but I've got, this is the late 2013. My MacBooks are late 2012, and they're absolutely fine. The only reason I want is just a bigger processor. But there you go. Anyway, we're not going to get into the Apple discussion. There you go.
There's mine. That's dying a death, and I've got my laptop as well.
Yeah.
Now my laptop's all right, but I don't know. I'm a little bit old-fashioned in this respect. I don't know whether my laptop can, even though it's newer and more powerful, I don't really trust it running everything. I'm a little bit scared because it's a laptop.
Yeah.
I haven't had any problems. My last MacBook was late 2013, and I used that all the way until, 5 or 6 months ago? 6 months ago?
Right, yeah.
And then I got the 16-inch after it came out. I was waiting, kept waiting and waiting and waiting. Actually, my last one still works fine. My wife uses it now. The only thing that I really needed to upgrade was for Logic, because I just needed more processing power.
Yeah.
I was making it work fine. It was nicer that once I got the new ones, I don't have to be so conservative in my plug-in use and what. I can go pretty easy on it now, but doing it on the laptop, and because I had thought about doing, maybe I would want to do some sort of computer here in the studio and then have my laptop for work, but then it's I don't want to spend the extra money. When the laptops these days can do anything that you need to do, so this was just a fine solution for me.
Yeah. I must admit, the only thing I want to change on this iMac is the hard drive, because when I bought it, I had the option for a regular hard drive or the Fusion hard drive, which is kind of part SSD, part traditional. And I'd heard some there had not been some very good reports about the Fusion drive, and it was a fairly new thing, or had been fairly new. So I kind of avoided it. I thought, I'll just go with the regular hard drive. I got this MacBook Pro from a friend of mine. I was talking to him at the end of last year, and I said, I really want to get a MacBook because I want to give my daughter my Windows laptop, and I want to be completely Mac, so I don't have to worry about messing things between different formats. And he said, well, I've got a MacBook here lying around. It's a MacBook Pro. It's in pretty good condition. You can, give me I think it was £100, and you can have it. I was like, okay, thank you. And it was a late 2012, so I really wasn't expecting much from it. But it got the SSD drive in it.
Yeah.
And my God, does that make a difference? It's... Yeah, I use SSDs on my work stuff, and it's just amazing. the stuff I do, lots of rendering and things, having an SSD is almost essential. But the difference now, I look at my iMac, I think, oh, God, that's taking a while. Well, it's not really, but compared to the MacBook, it's really slow. So I'm actually thinking, rather than getting new iMac, just to have an SSD fitted. There's a guy next town over that does them for about £160. He'll put a new 1 terabyte or 2 terabyte SSD in there.
Tough to change it out on an iMac. You've set yourself on one of those.
I did have a look at the one of the videos online that says, if you just get buy this little toolkit and then you can prize it off and do it yourself, and it's not too bad. But
that for hard drives and batteries and RAM, like many times. I mean, especially with you've been rebuilding Fairlights and all that. It's not like you don't have any experience.
Well, yeah, this is true. Yeah, it's for me. It's.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, for me, it's like because these weren't meant to be user serviceable. I always a little bit reticent about doing it, because what if I but I watched the video, and you get little suction cups, and there's the tool that peels the sticky stuff away. And I mean, I just wish, I know an iMac is an iMac, and therefore it's pretty much a sealed unit, and that's one of the benefits, is that it's a nice self-contained thing. But it still would have been nice. However, I know that people are probably saying, slagging apples off in the chat room. This particular machine has given me like 6 or 7 years service without me having to do anything to it at all, other than just the regular updates. Whereas every PC I own beforehand, every couple of years, I need to put some more RAM in, or I need to maybe upgrade the processor, or I need a bigger hard drive, or I need to do this, or I need to do that. And then eventually it would get to a point where I need to put a new motherboard in to accommodate the latest technology. You get more of a longer, hassle-free life with a Mac. But that's my experience anyway.
That's what it's been like for me too. So I don't mind spending the extra money up front, knowing that it'll have a long life, and plus the software.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I paid nearly £3,000 for this laptop, so if it conks out soon, I'll be most unhappy.
Well, I'm actually. This is the thing. I'm actually thinking about opening a bottle of wine now. I'm thinking about starting a business, because I'm getting more and more work now that I'm going to have to invoice people for, and I guess it's the same in the US. When you start doing stuff like this, the tax man wants his cut, and so I want to make sure I'm above board. So I thought, well, I'll set up a business, and then I'll just use that. And I was reading about what my tax liabilities are, etc., and I have to pay tax on all my profits. So if I don't make a profit, I don't have to pay tax on anything. So I'm thinking, So this I've got 2 invoices coming in for a total of £500. That's a new synthesizer. I've got this one coming in for £1,000. That's a new Mac. All expenses. And I'll just write it off against the company, and what a way to do it. So
And your missus can't have a go at you, because it's all business expense.
It's the business. I always used to think, because my dad, bless him, passed away a few years ago, or just over a year ago, should I say? But he always ran his own business, and he'd buy a new car, and he'd say, "Oh yeah, just put it on the business." What do you mean you put it on the business? You're self-employed, you're a sole trader, but you put it on the business. And I never really kind of understood this whole thing. Of course, he was just charging it as an expense to his business, and there was no profits, So yeah, I need to sort that out. But anyway, let's move on from that. Let's go to another topic. So we'll do one of these spoken topics, and then we've got a video that I want to share. So we've done hybrid synthesizers. So here's one. I'll do that one later. So here's one for the chat room. I was scooting through the internet today, and hands up who's a Star Wars fan. Anyone? You all Star Wars fans? Cryss? Yeah, of course. Yeah, lots of hands up. So we're all sorry, Chris. Your video is. I guess you're trying. What it is, it's resizing it here. So let me just let me switch to you there, and then I can go to the guest cam and make you a proper size again, and we come back. There we go. So
I did get size, but behind me is my Return of the Jedi poster.
Oh yes, I used to have the what are they called? The front of house posters, the kind of wide rectangular ones. I had one of each of those, and they were all in glass frames. And when they got divorced, the frames got smashed and the posters got torn. So yeah, I was gutted. But anyway, so Star Wars. Have you heard of the despecialized editions?
Oh, really?
Yeah,
like the ones that remove all of George Lucas crap out of.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's been this thing. It's been around for years, and every kind of 9 months to a year, there is a newer version that they get hold of better scans, and so there's this new project. Well, I say new project, fairly new project called 4K77, and then there's 4K80 and 4K83, and they're the code names for the 3 original Star Wars films that have been. They've managed to get hold of really good prints of these, the cinematic 35mm prints. And then they scan them in 4K. They fix them in 4K, and then they, print them in 4K, so to speak. And I was just reading through, all of this stuff about, George Lucas going back, and I happened across a video where J.J. Abrams was talking about, how he asked whether Disney were ever going to release the original versions, and apparently that's not a thing. And it got me thinking about music, of course. And I've got a ton of discs somewhere, 3.5-inch floppy discs that I had from my Cubase days with like all of my kind of early compositions on. And I'm struggling to get those off because they're in a format that even Cubase today doesn't recognise. And so I've kind of given up. But I just thought, if I could get access to them, would I go back and do a George Lucas? Would I go in and tinker with them and remaster them or remix them or... think, well, actually, back then I had a really awful synthesizer, and now I've got this really cool synthesizer that would be really good for it. Do I go back? And I just wanted to kind of open this up to the chat room, first of all, but also to you guys. Do you ever go back to your old works and think, that was a really great song, but now I've got this synth or this plugin or this thing, I can go back and tinker and never finish it. It's always evolving. What do you guys think?
I've done what you wanted to do, and I transferred all my old Atari files over to a PC, and then like much later on they've ended up as Cubase projects, and they're on this computer somewhere, but I never really go back to them because I think I get what you're saying about like that synthesizer was really simple then, or that drum machine was really a bit naff sounding then, so I can change that to that, and I can do this. It'd be really nice to get a bit of Omnisphere on there or a bit of Prophet 6 on that.
Yeah.
But I think that I've improved as well. so like I don't really see the point in me going back. You know what I mean? I'd rather see what I can do now with this stuff instead of. I think the stuff, the equipment is part of the inspiration process. So that sound will lead me to play something else. And if I'm just going back to something that I wrote with a Casio or something, it might not work for me. I don't think.
Yeah.
I don't know. I might be totally wrong, but I've got all these songs that I've never really messed with. I've put the sounds to them and thought, nah, it's a bit shit that.
Are you like me? Do you like sit down and come up with 4 or 8 bars of something, and then you maybe elaborate, and then you say, right, going for my dinner, and you forget about it, and then you come back to it a week later, and you go off somewhere else? And
it always goes one or two ways, doesn't it? You think, oh, well, have a listen to that idea, and you put it on. It's like, what?
Yeah.
And then you'll say, well, I'll have a listen to that idea, and it's like, oh, hey, that's all right. Yeah, I really like that. But I tend to not finish them. So I've got tons and tons of half-finished ideas that needs this, like, for me, monumental effort for me to go back in and finish them off to make them a complete thing.
Yeah.
Some of them are like, they might be like 2.5 minutes long, but they need lengthening. And I was going to say something else. Oh yeah, what works for me is some other stimulus, like working to visuals, like on a film. I've only done 2, but I found that really gives me some. I can work with what I see on screen or what's coming up on screen, and that kind of motivates me to finish things. Whereas I'm terrible if I'm just making music. It's got to have a purpose.
Yeah, I tend to find I've got like a folder. I think it's just called songs, and in there are just like hundreds of mostly Reason song files that I've just gone in and just got an idea, that sounds good, I'll just put that down, then I'll tuck it away, and I'll go back to that folder after 6 months, and I'll go through these. I don't remember doing that. Was that me? Because I have a kind of like a part-time writing partner that we haven't done anything for ages, but he would send me stuff and I'd send him stuff, and I think, was that me, or was that him? And if I take that idea and develop it, and it was his in the first place, well, that's a bit naughty. And then sometimes I hear stuff and think, oh, that's awful, and then I think that must have been his, it can't have been mine. or not, but I like to think that way. But what do you think, Cryss? Are you for going back in and dabbling?
I'm a little bit of both, I guess. So if I divided it into analog and digital, and I did some digital recording in about 1996, I think, and synthesizers and all. It was a look into my future, I guess. At that time, I was not into synthesizers at all, but I did do a little bit. But my main recording in the early days was one of those Passcam. Were they like the Porta Studio 424?
Oh yes.
4-track, crappy quality, but trying to mix 12 tracks onto 4 and bouncing and all that stuff. So about maybe 7 or 8 years ago, I got a hold of it again because I had traded it to a friend like 20 years ago. I said, hey, can I borrow that for a little bit? So what I did is I took that old unit and then I ran it into, I don't know if I was using Logic by then or not, or GarageBand, I don't remember. Well, no, if it was probably Logic by that time. So I recorded them onto the computer so that I'd have a digital file and I could listen to them. And so I think for the old analog recordings I did, it's just not worth cleaning up. And some of the guys in here said, I know Simon had talked about the vibe of the old stuff sounds better with your old gear. It's the way that it was, and you just let it live. But I think where I kind of slide a little bit the other way is that when I did start recording, so after GarageBand had come out is when I started getting into digital recording. And I used that off and on until I got Logic. And some of those old recordings have bounced into Logic. I thought, I'm going to keep working on this. And over the years, say, write something in 2006, record it, revise it in, 2009 and 12. And then I'll probably need to finish this up in the future in time. But will it ever get finished? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I've got here as well. I've got... I used to have a Roland VSS-200 Demo. Do you know the?
Yes.
I used to have one of them, and I recorded loads and loads of stuff with that. And I used to back it up to that, like a day to back up.
Yeah.
Where you hear all them horrible tones going into it and that. And I've still got all the DATs with the backup stuff on it. Oh, what's this?
Oh,
yes.
Yeah, I remember.
That's the 880, isn't it?
This is the 880EX.
Ah, right, yeah.
That's what I had when I was on that old tape machine.
So, I'll bring this up to so it'll get out of the shadow there. So
That's pretty good then.
Well, do you know, I the story behind this, this comes from, and I'll give you a clue. Have a guess which studio this used to be in. Can you see the white asset tag?
Oh, is it Trevor's?
It's Trevor's. Or used to be.
Right.
It's mine
Yeah.
now.
Did you leave anything on it?
Yep. So, when they shut Psalm West down a few years ago, they had a yard sale, and they were just basically selling off all the equipment that they weren't going to take over to the new place in Ladbroke Grove. So I thought, well, kill two birds with one stone. I've always wanted to go and have a look around Psalm West because it's such an amazing studio with a huge history, and also you never know, I might be able to pick up a few bits of gear. And I went in there. I had no idea what they'd got. I mean, they'd shown some photos and stuff, but there was nothing there really that kind of caught my eye. And I go in there and I see that, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. I could actually use that maybe. So I picked it up and put it under my arm just so that nobody else got it. And I also got a Guitar Rig pedal board for Guitar Rig 1. So again, there's no use now. And there was something else. I can't remember what it was. Something fairly small. But most of it was outboard. They were just getting rid of a whole bunch of outboard. And so anyway, Trevor's son Aaron was doing, he was running the cash box, and there was no prices on anything. So you just kind of had to go, get what you wanted, go up to the thing, and if, hopefully, they weren't asking too much. 150 quid for that VS-880EX. Oh, yep, I'll have that. And he says he's making out a receipt, and he says, if there's anything on there, wipe it. Okay, all right. So I get back home and I think, what could possibly be on here? Because I said, which studio was it used in? He said it was 2 or 3, which one of the small writing studios. So I wondered. I plugged it in, fired it up. It's got a hard drive in there. Press play, and there's stuff. There's music. Oh, what's this? And I'm trying to listen to it, and for the life of me, I have no idea who it was. Can't tell. I've even tried to Shazam, the thing. No, clearly it was nothing that was ever, made commercially available. But I can't bring myself to delete it because, it's a bit of history. But I did try using it, and I couldn't get on with all the menu diving. There was a lot of menu diving on those things. But I did pick up a Tascam 488 a few years ago. A friend was selling one. I thought, I've always wanted a cassette Porter Studio, and this was the big one, and I got it, and I was just horribly disappointed. Really, and so I sold it on about a week later. I thought, no, I can't do it. So yeah, interesting things those.
I bought I didn't buy it actually. A friend of mine had a Revox tape machine. Just the 1/4-inch mastering ones, and he said, I've got this here. Do you want it? And give me the money when when you've got it, kind of thing. I said, well, I've not really got much use for it, but I would love one. I've always wanted one. It goes with all that kind of Human League thing with me. You've got to have the tape machine, the OMD, the Depeche Mode.
Depeche Mode, yeah.
And so I got this Revox, and I thought, I could start sending tracks to that, getting a bit of tape character on them and bringing them back, And I sent off for another reel, and I bought another reel, and for a couple of weeks I was Revox mad. I had Revox t-shirts off Jeff Tome and everything. I was proper into it, and I was ordering things online for how to wire this Revox in and get it up and running. And he said, what do you want to do about that? And I was pretty skint at the time. He said, what do you want to do about that Revox? I said, well, I've not got the money just yet. He said, I've got a buyer for it. He said, there's no way you could bring it back, is there?
Oh, no.
So I took it back, and I've got all these Revox bits now that I can't use on it.
Oh, nightmare. Oh, dear. Oh, well. But at least you had a bit of fun with it. I mean...
Oh, yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
It's great.
I've only had limited... I had but I had access to a Fostex. It was one with a detachable front panel that you could with all the transport controls on. And I think the band I was in at the time, that was our first demo, was recorded on one of those. I forget how many tracks was it. I think it was 8 track. I can't remember that, but it was good fun. But yeah, interesting stuff. So I think that's sorry, Chris. Yeah.
Yeah, even before I did recording, one of my first experiences with music was with a tape recorder, or it was actually a reel-to-reel machine. And so this is before I had any amp or anything. I just had an electric guitar, and so I would sit and play and learning some Beatles songs and whatnot. And before I got an amplifier, I don't remember if it was before or not, but I only had an amp and a guitar, so I had no sort of distortion or anything.
Mm-hmm.
The neighbor brings us over. He was always tinkering with electronics. He's like, "Here, why don't you plug into this?" And then he cranked the input on it. And so the tape wasn't running or anything, but he was just allowing me to hear it over some old headphones, and I heard distortion. I played my guitar through distortion. I still remember exactly where I was in my parents' garage and all this. And I heard distortion come out from my guitar. I'm like, yes, I need this forever. Yes. But it just funny because like my early music experience was basically like I was in the mid 60s guitar amp, homemade fuzz box, the reel machine distortions like Ritchie Blackmore, and it was kind of fun thing. It was just one of those memories that stuck with me.
Yeah. My first kind of, and this will bring us on to, this is a nice little segue, one of my first recording experiences trying to do something that was just, rather than play everything into a microphone at the same time, kind of multi-tracking. I had a Sharp ghetto blaster, whatever you want to call them, with the back-to-back tape deck. Do you remember those? So it made the thing quite small and compact. Instead of having side-to-side tape, it had back-to-back tape, and you were able to record on one deck and then stick that in the playback deck, put in an auxiliary input, and then record onto the blank tape, and you record what was playing on tape deck 1 and what was going in on the auxiliary, and then you take that tape and you swap it over, and you did that classic sound on sound recording. Of course, everything with each iteration it just got slightly worse. But what I used to use to do that was this, or to come up with my sounds. And this is Yamaha VSS-200, which is my first proper keyboard. That was also my first proper sampler. And the reason I bring that up is because if I go to our topics page, I came across this the other day, and I think it might have been on Matrix Synth that I first clocked this. But when I saw it was the VSS-200, I was like, "Oh, what's this?" You guys, this is part of our technical issue. You probably won't be able to hear this, but hopefully you've seen the video. But I'm going to play it for our esteemed listeners. This was a really, really great demonstration of, what is essentially a home domestic toy, if you will. It's not a pro keyboard by any sense. And what a great way to kind of show this off and do it so well. Oh, it looks like some people can hear it and others can't. Oh, I see. Those they can. Oh, right. Good. Sorry. Just catching up with the chat there. So hopefully you guys saw this video. What are your thoughts on this?
I thought it was amazing. I remember my comment on it was "hangs head in shame" because it sounded better than like stuff I've been knocking out with all kinds here. So it just shows you, doesn't it? If you've got the ideas, it doesn't matter what you're using. That is a perfectly decent piece of music on I don't want to dish your keyboard, but how much is that worth?
I got that. I sold mine at a car boot sale back in 1990 something, and then regretted it ever since. And found this and bought it for £35.
Yeah, 35 quid.
Yeah, and it's
incredible,
fully functional. And I was bringing up here. So he made a sound in here, which is a bass clarinet sampled with frequency modulation. So let's just turn the effects down on here. So this is that bass clarinet, and then he sampled that from internally. So you just do this. So there's that. Now you have your. This is the sample. That's the original. So you can hear that there's this 8-bit quality, and then he used frequency modulation. So you just tap that button, and this instantly is different sound, and it's just little clever things like that. And then of course he's processed it, recorded it nicely into something very nice, and yeah, it's great. But I remember when I picked this up a little while back, all of that kind of simplicity that I thought was mind-blowing, that I thought would have just been really dull, was actually kind of refreshing. And what's the term? It kind of unleashed my creativity.
I've just noticed Native VS's comment in the chat said it's probably £30 more than what it's worth.
Probably, but you know what? I mean, Sigur Rós used these.
Yeah.
So
it sounds great to me.
There are actually, there are some patches on here. For example, let's get rid of that, so we don't turn that off. So that's kind of a classic FM type bell sound, but then when you take that and stick it through, some, give it a bit, give it some effects and stuff, and then all of a sudden these little 2-operator FM voices start to come to life. And there's more in there. I mean, there's some really awful ones, but even this one, where I just take that off there. So can't even get the chord right. But it's a passable horn patch that could be used. It's I think it's great. What do you think, Cryss?
Oh yeah, I think you can do some great stuff with cheap gear. In fact, I've got my Micro Freak. I think you guys can see that in the corner there.
Let me just switch over to the. So the camera's gone funny again, but let me bring. Here we go. There you go.
And so, yeah, I mean, it's cheap. I think I got it for just over $200 shipped, used. Mm-hmm. And it's a little piece of plastic. And I decided that I was going to, in order for me to go through the process of starting the sound design business and going like, well, I need to do all this other work like PDFs and uploads and websites and all this kind of stuff, that I would start with the Micro Freak. So just a few days ago, I did a demo of all the sounds of it. And, on my channel, I've done a lot of Moog 1 stuff, and so Blade Runner on the Moog 1, it's like tons of hundreds of likes and comments, and I really appreciate that. But I did this track that I felt like was completely overlooked, and I did it all with the Micro Freak, easy drummer, and I add a little bit of guitar with my telly on there. But everything, all the bass was from this. The rhythm stuff, the arpeggiator, just different patches that I had made and put together the song, and the only thing that's being used on it is some Valhalla effects. And it sounded fantastic. I thought it came out really well, and you would never guess it was a $200 synthesizer. Yeah, I mean, especially when you can find some simple sounds where I think it works is, like your little Yamaha or this Micro Freak. They're kind of plain. When you just sit and play this thing, you're like, well, I've got some good sounds out of it, but at its core, it's not wowing you like a Prophet or a Moog or something, but you just massage it a little bit, and those simple sounds all of a sudden come out into this beautiful thing that you're like, there's no way that's a $200 synthesizer. It just sounds amazing.
Yeah.
So
I remember when I can't remember what year it was now, but Trio had that hit with Da Da Da. I think we all know that song. It's a Casio VL1, and it's just that with a guitar and a drum beat during the chorus, but the rest of the song is just that VL1. And we were all thinking, wow, you can make a hit record with a VL1. This is just amazing. And then, you know, as you get older, you get a bit more snobby and a bit more, you diss those things. They're toys for kids. And I remember I used to work for a company here in the UK called Argos, which were or still are, a catalogue retailer, which means that they have a high street presence, but instead of being a department store where you walk around all the different sections, you have a catalogue of everything, and the store is just like an order. It's like a warehouse with a till at the front, basically. And I used to manage the warehouse upstairs, and so I used to have access to all the stock at any time, and during quiet periods, I would break out certain Yamaha or Casio keyboards that we'd sold, and there were always these, you know, PSS, PSRs, MTKs, or whatever the Casios were. And I just remember, like, every catalogue that we brought out every 6 months, there was this new thing in there, and they'd bring them out. And I remember this one, so I don't know if you guys can see the topic screen. I'm just going to switch to it there. So this was the PSS 680, which had the big blue drum pads at the front as well, and it was, you know, it was this and then there was the 780, which I think was the next one that they did of this, and the 790, and I just remember these being really cool, but I didn't want to like them because I kind of felt like I was being a bit snobby about these things. And then I get into proper synthesizers, and during that time these things have developed a new world through circuit bending. And all of a sudden, you see all these people that have opened them up with a soldering iron, put some switches on the front, and opened up the possibilities. And some of that stuff sounds amazing. You know, some of that circuit bent gear is just wow.
And it gets kind of funny that you know, you have this real cheap gear, and you know, we get sophisticated in our taste, and then these companies are coming out with $500 synthesizers that are like, you know, 8-bit chiptune synthesizers.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not quite understanding this.
But I think it's great. I mean, I guess I poo-pooed these things for a while, and then I had a bit of, you know, I'm a very nostalgic person, and I just saw this and I had to have it because I regretted selling it. Back in the day, I think I sold it. Say we have these things called car boot sales. I don't know whether you have similar things in the US where, you know, everyone just turns up in a field or a car park and sells their old shit out of the back of their cars, and they've become quite a commercial thing nowadays. But I remember I had the VSS on a little keyboard stand, and I sold it to this little old lady who just wanted to play her hymns on a Sunday. And I'm thinking, this is probably not the thing for you unless you're into sampling, because that was its kind of key selling point. And I remember as she took it away under her arm, I was just like, I really shouldn't have done that. I hadn't used it for ages, but my then wife, the first Mrs. Puricelli, was like quite keen on me downsizing my real estate in terms of my, you know, musical collections, and so unfortunately, you know, it kind of had to go. But have you got anything like that, you guys? Anything, you know, like an old Casio or an old Yamaha? Because those were the two big brands, weren't they?
I've got a VL1. Yeah, I was looking around for it when you was on about it. I was going to try and produce it.
I thought you were looking for another can of beer.
Yeah, that as well. And I've got a Casio CT 1000p.
That's it, CTs, Casio tones, of course. Yeah.
And this was like a full size thing it's got like a screen in the middle. It's not really a screen. It's kind of like a sticker with a piece of glass over it, so it looks like a screen. And it's got waveforms on it and that, and like you can like put one instrument through the kind of envelope shape of another, you know.
Yeah. Some of them got
kind of limited, like, but I bought that back because that's what I started out with, and I used to have this like percussive organ sound on there.
Yeah.
That I used to use in this one particular song when we were an original band years ago. I thought, I need that back. I'm going to buy another one of them. And I think I only paid 75 quid for it. And I've sampled it all and put it in the loft,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
So I have got access to them sounds again. But I think that's it for me on the retro thing. I wouldn't mind all of them, all the Casios, because they're great.
Well, a friend of mine just down the road, she'd got like half a dozen different varieties, and one of them was either the 680 or the 780, and she said these are all free to a good home. And I think it was just after I bought the DX5, and so I wasn't really supposed to be bringing anything into the house again. And I said, I remember I replied to her, I said, I'll have a couple off you. And then my wife replied to it, and she said, no, you won't. Okay, all right. But yeah, I mean, some of them, there's some really cheesy sounds, on this thing, and there's some amazing, really nice little things that you think, actually, that would be a nice little embellishment. If you sample that or maybe mess around with it. I mean, the thing I used to do with my back-to-back tape recorder, I used to pretend that I was doing remixes. And what I would do is I'd sample a piece off a record, and I forget what the sampling time on this is, very short. My favourite one was You Spin Me Round by Dead or Alive. So the 12-inch mix, it starts off with Pete Burns just going, watch out, here I come. And then the drums kick in and it's off. And I would sample that piece of Pete Burns, so I'd have this "Watch Out, Here I Come" on here, and then I'd then just play the 12-inch and be going what watch out here what. And it was probably really annoying for my fellow bedsit companions in the rooms above and next door, but I was having a whale of a time. It was proper sampling that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh dear! Right, well there you go. That's if anybody wants to know where to find this guy, I'll just throw his webpage, his YouTube channel up on there. So he goes by the name of Alphonse, Alfonse. He's only got 723 subscribers, so go and give him a like or two and a subscription. But his whole channel hasn't got a huge amount of videos on there, but a lot of them are. So you got the VSS-200, the SK-100, the Casio SK-100, Yamaha PSS-460, PSS-140, PSS-580, PS1, the actual PS1 is on there, Technics SX-K200, there's an Omnichord on there, the PSS-190, Casio MT-52, and SK1, which is their little sampling keyboard, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff on there. And he's done some he's got an Amstrad. He's done some really good stuff with this. It's very very interesting to hear and inspirational. It might make you want to break out your cheapies. Cryss has got something in his hands that he's waving at me. What's that, mate?
So I don't have any of those keyboards. I almost got one. I think it was something like that Casio MT-52. My in-laws found from some relative. I think it was given to them. They pull it out of the closet. I'm like, oh, I'll come pick that up if you want and see what I. But it ended up being given to my 3.5-year-old niece, so I missed out on that one. Yeah, well, but I did have a couple other things that were that same kind of vein. This is probably made in the 70s. It's a Kingston, like it's a Tiesco. It's a student-sized guitar, so it's actually pretty small. I'm not that big of a person, but kind of the thing about the guitar versions of these type of keyboards is that oftentimes they don't play too well. This one plays all right, other than being out of tune, but they just really, they're where you can do something with those synthesizers, you can't really do a whole lot with this. But the thing that I did have that was kind of a garage sale thing was, I don't even remember where I got it, and I've had it since the 90s. And sometimes, oddly enough, like my going through high school and stuff, my parents didn't have a lot of money and didn't get me anything, and I pretty much had to earn it myself. But every once in a while, Mom would come home with some strange guitar or something from a garage sale. And so I got this 1960s. It's unbranded, I believe, but it's a Farfisa micro organ.
Oh yeah.
It's a little suitcase that you plug it into power. The power goes to a small DC motor, which pushes wind out, and then you hit the key. They open it up. And so I had that sitting in the garage for many years, and then I think last year I decided I'm just going to do a recording with this because I've had it for all these years. I don't know how it's going to work because it's noisy as heck. So I put it up and put together a little track. I made the percussion by I've got AKG 414 here just off the screen that you can't see, but mic'd it up, slapped the case for my percussion, and it had like a little metal music stand that made for more like of a hi-hat or a snare sound, and then I was tapping the case, different parts of the case for kick and snare. Recorded that, then I did the full little keyboard parts, and it's a little weird because the bass notes are louder than the high parts, so I had to figure out how to work that. Ran it through some, reverb and stuff, and then made a track out of it. It ended up being kind of a fun little project to take something that is a forgotten piece of gear. It's something from our past or something that's just not. I mean, this thing's not really usable in any sort of modern music experience, and even far less than say like that Yamaha. But it was fun to make a track out of it.
Yeah, as that we had something similar over here called made by an Italian company. They might have even been connected, Bontempi, and they used to have these little kiddie organs. Like you say, you plug it in, and this blower would blow air through. Every time you hit a key, it would open it up, and it would come through the reed. Obviously, it was just probably a bit of plastic vibrating or something. But also on the left-hand side was that kind of auto accompaniment chord thing. So
yeah. Mine didn't have that, but I have seen some pictures of those, which are
pretty... and they're interesting because then this whole thing is like 100% polyphonic. And you could have your accompaniment chords on the left and then play your stuff on the right. Obviously everything sounded the same, awful, but it was it was good fun. My sister had one, and she dug it out of the loft when she left home, and she said, "Here you go, Rob, you like keyboards." And I thought, oh yeah, I'll hang on to that. You never know, I might sample it, something might come from it. And I think I ended up skipping it a few years later, but it's some of that stuff is really quite interesting. But yeah,
one of the things that kind of goes along with this is just how you acquire some of this gear anymore. Because, I mean, in the late late 90s, I mean, I would drive out to Orange County, California, which is like kind of like think Disneyland area.
Yeah.
And a bunch of music shops out there, or we'd go up to LA, and you could find these stores which had vintage pedals and things, and then also we'd hit up all the pawn shops, and so they didn't know what they'd have, and I'd end up buying a vintage Fender Bassman head, 1965 for $100 with a vintage tube screamer with it for $50 more, like just unbelievable deals. But now that they all have the internet, it's just not even worth going by and checking that stuff out anymore. It's like have to do eBay. Maybe you'll get lucky. Yeah,
this is it. I think things go through fads as well, because I remember my boss at one of my old jobs had a Suzuki Omnichord, and he said, "Oh, you like this?" And he brought it in. He said, "Well, you can take it home." And I had every intention of trying to learn how to use this thing and sample it. And I just remember plugging it in and thinking, "Oh, this isn't very good." I wasn't really, grasping the concept, so to speak. And then a few years later, all of a sudden they're like shooting up in price on places like eBay, because some famous person was seen playing ones, and now everybody wants one. And I think there's early ones and later ones, and the later ones have got more going for them. But they're interesting little instruments that at one point you could pick up for next to nothing at these garage sales or car boot sales. And I remember the days when I would go to a car boot sale every Sunday religiously in the hope that I would find the mythical TB303 that Mavis's husband had bought to accompany him on his Technics home organ, and didn't fully understand the worth of it, and would let me have it for $5 or something. Never happened.
A friend of mine got a SH-101 for £15 at a boot sale.
Joking.
No, £15, and he didn't even. This is what really bugs me about it. He didn't even go to the boot sale.
No.
His mum came home from the boot sale and said, "Yeah, I found you this. It was £15, and it was an SH-101."
That's insane.
That's true. That.
Oh man, that's just.
It's quite a while ago, like.
Yeah, but it was happening. You know, a lot of people said, "Oh, it's just a myth." It was happening that people were just chucking these things out because they had no use for them, and then that's how things like acid house really took off, because people wanted to make music electronically but couldn't afford all the newfangled digital stuff, and would pick up all this stuff that everyone had thrown out from, you know, in Goodwill stores and stuff.
Yeah.
What kills me is like when I was really into doing that and checking garage sales or pawn shops and stuff, that I got so many good deals on guitars, pedals, amps, and I had a thought back in the 90s that I remember way before my my synthesizer playing days, like I really like the Mini Moog. That's really cool. Maybe I should pick one up. They're $300 or something off of the local ads, and I just never, it's like, man, I don't know if I want to spend that much money on it. I think the guys like Simon and in the chat and Firechild, these guys that bought it, like all these great classics back 20 years ago, where they weren't so crazy expensive as they are now. I'm like, oh. I'm jealous.
Yeah. I mean, I can't grumble, because I mean, I've been really lucky, especially in the last year, in finding some real good deals. Not bargain basement deals, but I've managed to acquire some equipment for some very reasonable prices. Just through good fortune or friend of a friend. I mean, most of that rack back there, apart from 2 or 3 things, I've just lucked out. The Emax, I just happened to find that on eBay. Some guy, he's got a studio in Brighton, was just wanted shot of it, and so he said, yeah, 400. I think it was £450, and I've seen them go for twice that, if not more. I know it's a basic model, but it's just it's a bargain. So yeah, they're still there to be had. Still some out to be had. So we are just gone 10 o'clock. And I thought, seeing as we were late starting, that we if you guys are okay for us to finish a little bit later, let's give everyone the full 2 hours value, because we're currently at we're about 12-15 minutes off. Let's have one more topic, and this one was one that I suggested. Be interesting to see, and again, this is one for the chat room, so I know you guys are about 30 seconds or so behind the live stream, so we'll have a chat about it, and you can throw in your opinions. Bandcamp have yet again, just on Friday, did their fee waiving thing, which they've been, I think this is the 3rd time that they've done it since the whole COVID-19 stuff. And for anybody that's selling music on Bandcamp, they now, for that day, they get 100%. Not that Bandcamp, fleece you for a huge amount of money in terms of fees, but they've just waived all of their fees for these single days. And I think they're probably going to carry on doing it, because what I've seen is that it's really, Bandcamp has been very popular, but it's just become ever so much popular, and even big, so many big named artists are on there now selling their music, whether it's the artist or the label. Lots of people are doing it on there, and it seems to be this really community friendly service. And I've got stuff on there, and not that it sells very well, but at least you can stream it as well, which is great. So my question was to everyone, what platforms and distribution methods do you like? Is Bandcamp the way that you like to go, so you can do digital streaming and physical sales all in one, or do you like to use one of these aggregating services where you submit the track and then it's distributed amongst all the streaming and the download outlets, or do you like to just deal with it personally on your own website? Do you find your own physical sales, and maybe you can support your own digital stuff? That was my question to everyone. So I don't know what you guys. Let's us talk about it. I think we're starting to get a few comments in the chat. We'll bring those in later. But Cryss, Ben, what do you prefer?
Well, I don't have any music for sale at the moment, but I have been really pleased with Bandcamp since I discovered them. And it's just been through finding artists that I like. I think actually what got me to Bandcamp was Lisa Belladonna. Mm-hmm. So I went looking for her music, and I found this whole website that had great music on it. And it's the stuff that I love music, and I had always been, just building my music collection, and I've not gone to any of the streaming services or anything, and my music buying just like radically dropped off, like maybe a few years ago, 5 years ago. And I'd still grab something off of iTunes if it's an album that I heard about that I really wanted. But really not much of anything. And one of the problems I was having is I couldn't find music that I liked anymore. Good rock is not really that being made anymore. And then as in the previous years, getting into synthesizers, like I've always loved synthesizer, particularly analog synthesis, but I just couldn't ever find the music that showed it off really well. I'm just not into EDM. Marshall in the chat makes some really great trance music, but that's not, those types of music, techno and everything else wasn't what I was into. So all of a sudden I was finding this music that, like Lisa Belladonna's music, and there's been some other guys. Steve Pierce has put out some on the Moog One, and on and on and on. And so because I've been buying music through Bandcamp, they find out what I like, and they've been suggesting other things. I go and I check out, like, wow, this is great. I like this.
Yeah.
I never found this on iTunes or YouTube or anything. And then the fact that that they do support musicians so well, like you're not getting fleeced for money. When you post something, it's pretty inexpensive. And now that so many people are going to it, this move of having these free Fridays, I think, is a brilliant marketing move.
Yeah.
Really helps Bandcamp, because now all your artists are telling people to go buy their music, and you're getting people to their site to sign up, and which is then going to create revenue for them. But then also it's helping the musicians, which is probably the primary purpose of it, because they do seem to be caring about musicians. So I went really long on that, but I just have been really happy about what's been going on with Bandcamp.
Yeah, I think the general consensus is that Bandcamp is a much more artist-friendly website, but also at the same time great for consumers, because it's a single platform that you can download, buy downloads, stream, buy physical product, whether that's the vinyl, the CD, or a T-shirt, and it's just this complete service. And so many people are using it now for all sorts of things. Ben, do you distribute your stuff at all?
I've never finished anything to distribute, but when I do, I probably will go to Bandcamp from your recommendations. I'm not really much help with this, because I've got like a SoundCloud account. I am working on like a little EP thing at the minute, so maybe I'll have a go putting that on Bandcamp. I don't know.
I would certainly, highly recommend it, because even the setup process itself is pretty painless. I did this thing last year where I just wanted to put one track out under a pseudonym that I'd not used before. It was kind of a challenge, and I thought I'll just put this out, and I didn't want to give anybody a clue as to who it was that was doing it. It was just me, and so I had to set up a whole new entity, and it was like within 5 minutes I was ready to go. Uploaded my track, and
you weren't Crazy Frog, were you?
No.
Oh, right. Okay.
And if I was, I wouldn't tell you. No, but it was just such a really stress-free process to just set everything up, and then to sell it and to market it. It's straight away. There was a time when if you shared a song that was on Spotify or iTunes or whatever, that if you shared that link to something like Facebook or any kind of social media thing, you'd be able to listen to that entire track. Now you just get 30-second previews, and if I want to share a track to all the people on my feed that might like this, I don't want a 30-second clip. I want them to be able to sit down and listen to it. So now I tend to share YouTube clips rather than anything else, or Bandcamp, because the other thing is that Bandcamp is used by people like us who are in the grand scheme of things nobodies, right up to major label artists, where they will sell their stuff independently of the regular distribution channels, and give you added benefits of the fact that when you buy a physical product, you get the download as well, so you can stream it, or locally you can have it on your digital library. If you want to share an artist's album, you can share the entire album as a streaming thing, a streaming object. They can listen to the entire track or the entire album. They do great discounts. A lot of artists have been taking Bandcamp up on this discography discount, so you can have the entire discography of a band or an artist with 25 or 50% off. It's a bulk purchase, get some money off, and everything you buy is also instantly streamable on any mobile device using the Bandcamp app, which is great. My only quibble is that the Bandcamp app isn't on Apple CarPlay, so I can't use it in the car, which is a pain. But beside that, everything else is just superb. Just looking through the comments here, a lot of love for Bandcamp. Sasquatch says Bandcamp actually helps musicians as opposed to everyone else. Bandcamp is my favourite place to buy music, says Wagyu. I like Bandcamp because you can listen to the whole album to see if you like it, and then sometimes get physical stuff too.
To that point there, thinking about an artist, so when you come across a new artist, sometimes their music changes over the years, and if you're just buying it and you only got a little snippet of it, you're taking a chance that whether you're going to like it or not. And so even with somebody's albums that I bought, I probably bought a half a dozen of Lisa Belladonna's albums. Not every one of them appeals to me. Not to say that they're not good, they are. But as far as my musical taste, and so actually being able to stream it a few times has caused me to spend more money than I normally would have, because maybe I would get the album that I wasn't really that keen on, and I wouldn't have found the 3 other albums that I just am over the moon about.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, since this discount, the waiving of the fees of these 3 particular days, a lot of labels and artists have been putting their stuff out, and this is another great thing about Bandcamp, is that you can have a name your price option. So the synthwave community really is very well represented, and a lot of them do that, where it's name your price. So if somebody like Pilot Priest, I really love this artist called Pilot Priest, and he tends to release just individual tracks. Well, I'll pay $1 a track, no problem, because that's what you'd pay on iTunes or anything else. Happily do that. And then sometimes he'll release an EP, and I might have just bought an album, so I think, well, actually, I'll give him a couple of dollars, but then the next time I'll give him 5, or I might give him 10 or something. And it just allows you to be more flexible, and there's almost this kind of culture of just like trust and honesty, and you'll give an artist. I tell you, the clever thing they do is that if you pay for something on your page, on that artist page, you'll have a little heart that says you own this, and then also your little avatar will appear on the list of people that have bought it, and it's almost like not shaming people into buying it, but it just plants that little seed in your mind that actually you're supporting an artist, and that they're grateful for it. And even if you're just paying them 50 pence or $1 or £1 for their track, you're actually and it kind of makes you want to avoid not paying for it. You know, some people put stuff up, they put, name your price, but I can't, I find it difficult to download stuff for free when it's offered to me like that, because I want to be doing the right thing, you know?
Where it comes out for the artists, and that it does make it nice because there are people with very limited income that have access to your music, and maybe they only play, you know, £1 or whatever for your album, but that's a pound that you didn't have.
Yeah.
And you'll make it up on the back end because somebody will come along like, man, I really enjoyed it, so here's $20.
Yeah.
You know, you split the difference, and they both have, you know, paid almost $10.
Yeah.
It can be good for both the end user and for the artists themselves too.
Yeah. I mean, I just buy so much stuff on there now, and so just recently there's a couple of labels that I that have 2 or 3 artists on that I really like, and they've just done everything, you know, name your price, and it's just it's actually getting quite expensive now because I'm buying everything, and they're throwing stuff up on there. You know, the good thing about this stuff that they're doing, you know, with the waived fees, is that a lot of artists are now releasing stuff on there that they've never released on there. So live albums, you know, and other stuff like that, and that's really cool. So you're getting, you know, a selection of music that you've never had before, and now, you know, it just seems so good. And I've used TuneCore in the past for other stuff, and you pay them it's like for one track it's like $10 a year for them to keep it seeded on these services, and you can pay more to have, you know, to have it bumped up into playlists, you know, and people, you know, it'll get added here and there. And you know, I never sell some of the stuff that I've got on there, but to keep it fresh over there, I have to keep paying for it, and I'm not really getting any return on that. And whereas Bandcamp, I don't have to pay to put my stuff up; they just take a small cut every time I sell something. So you know, even if you put something on there and nobody likes it, you won't be out of pocket, you know. So I think it's. I'm just trying to find the page that I set up, and I can't remember how I set it up, but I just wanted to, you know, to show you the example of how an artist can get on there and set up their page how they want to set it up really, really quickly. And, you know, if you've got maybe you've got so here you go, this, I'll put my page up on here. So this was a project that I did a while back, and all of these graphics, I mean, it doesn't look fantastic. Let me just transition over there. So but, you know, to set all this stuff up, it just takes like 5 minutes. See how many copies of this I've sold? Grand total of 5. And maybe I should make this name your price. I might get rid of a few more. But, you know, you get banners, backgrounds, you can have video on here as well, and then you can say stream the track. It's just so simple to do. I really love it. I think it's a great thing. Anything else in the chat room? Wagyu says, this is why piracy can also be positive for artists. You're making new fans, and when they have money, if they like you, they will buy your music. See, now I'm not entirely sure how I feel about that.
I think he has got a point there. Because, because they will go and probably watch you live. So they might have got the album for free, but they might pay 50 quid for a ticket to go and see you live, you know.
But this is how the industry has gone, hasn't it? You know, because of things like piracy, there's really not a lot of money to be made in physical music anymore, because, you know, anybody can just download it, or, you know, torrent file or whatever. And so, you know, going to see a band live is where they can actually make some money. But I can't say I've never downloaded anything that I probably shouldn't have downloaded. I'm not going to be a holier than thou person, but I do try, or did, should I say, when I was struggling, I maybe didn't have much money, I did always try and pay for stuff that I, you know, but there's other things that you can. But this is where streaming has had a big effect, because now you can legitimately stream for nothing, for the sake of maybe have a few adverts being thrown in there. Why bother pirating stuff? Because you can just access it, on every device in every room. You don't need to, download something that you could only previously buy. It's always there. Yeah. So Wagyu makes a point about, it's the new radio, and I always used to make this point as well, is that, you can listen to music. I mean, what did we used to do back in the day when when we were young? We taped our songs off the radio.
Yeah.
You'd sit there with your finger on the pause button, waiting, for the DJ to stop, and then you could start, recording.
And then those DJs that would talk over the intro.
Yeah.
Hate those DJs. But it's true. I mean, you could listen to that, but the thing was, the artist was still getting paid, because for every play they would get paid. Regardless of how many times they would get paid. Whereas for certain periods of time, people weren't getting paid with streaming or illegal downloads. Now that streaming is now the big method of music consumption, and most artists aren't on good deals when it comes to streaming. There's not a lot of money to be made, whether it's legitimate or otherwise. So touring and playing live is really and selling merch at these places is probably the main source of income for a lot of these people. Yeah, Simon in the chat room says, used to tape Top of the Pops. I used to stand in front of my TV with a microphone to tape certain things so that I could listen back to them, and we would be happy with that. I couldn't stand doing that now, because if I don't get decent quality, I don't want to listen to it.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah,
that's a reason too to go and get that other format. Like, well, you can check out an artist and maybe they posted their album on YouTube, but then you can go get it on iTunes or Bandcamp and get it in the best format that you can get it, and that makes a difference.
And that's another great thing about Bandcamp. Again, we should be getting commission here. You have to upload your stuff in high quality, and then Bandcamp will encode it in all the other formats. So you have to upload in like 16-bit WAV at minimum, I think. But you can then download that track as a WAV file, as a FLAC file, as an ALAC file, as an MP3 file. I think they still do OGG as well. So all these different formats, and you don't have to do any of that. Just upload the decent quality one version, and they do the rest, which is fantastic. So it helps the artist as well. They're not having to do multiple versions for people that want the high resolution.
Yeah.
And of course, if you've got stuff like 5.1 files that are encoded in FLAC, for example, you can sell those on Bandcamp because it's just a file download. So it's great. I'm a big fan. Anything else in the chat room? Have I missed anything there? Sasquatch says there is, dare I suggest, an intimacy between the artists and their audience on Bandcamp in a way that there isn't on other platforms. Again, I think that's quite true. It does feel like a more personal experience buying direct from the artist. But some
Torsten said was using MTV in Hanover to record music.
Yeah.
Remember watching videos on MTV, and then by the time I got done with school, it wasn't even worth tuning in.
Do you remember when MTV used to be about music?
Yeah. I haven't watched it for years.
No,
but
me
I've
either.
seen a couple of adverts for it, and it just seems all like my teenage pregnancy, and
It is. It's just
bizarre.
reality. Yeah, it's horrible stuff. No, I remember when MTV launched in the US, and over here, we were like, oh, we can't wait to get MTV, and then we got it about 2 or 3 years later, because it was on. We had Sky was the satellite provider.
With Sky, didn't it?
Yeah, and by then they'd already started. It wasn't just pure. Video after video after video. They started to formulate some shows, some things, and then of course it just It's what moved it horrible in the 90s. It just moved into this kind of reality thing. Ugh. Yuck. Anyway, so I think that's about 2 hours worth. Actually, more than 2 hours worth. So things have kind of held up pretty reasonably well. Do you know what? We're gonna have to start fundraising ourselves to get some proper gear. I think maybe we should start a Patreon page and sort something out. But we're holding up. And I was a bit worried because I'd heard reports of Jamie's show being beset with gremlins today, and I was like, oh no, please. But I think hopefully we've got through that quite well. So before we go, let's see what everyone is doing in the next week or so. Cryss, what are you up to next week?
Just working more, gonna the Microfreak stuff, and then I said I've already started the Prophet, working on the sound set, and I'm had a great conversation with a new Moog 1 user the other day, and we were talking about it and supping them out a little bit, and I got on it to just sit for a little bit, and after playing all these other things, I was like, oh, I cannot wait to get back to this. This is where I want to spend my time, but until then, I'm having a good time with it and just doing all my regular stuff around here.
Cool. And how about you, Ben? Got anything planned? You going to carry on with your scoring?
I've got to finish that this week. It was supposed to be finished last week, and I'm still adding to the sound, to try and get it the depth I want and that. But I've got it. The soundtrack's composed from start to finish, but I'm trying to pad it out in places,
right.
Make sure it sounds right all the way through. And I want to do a little experiment. We was on about the Korg stuff in one of the shows. I thought I'd try and do a piece just using the plug-in stuff and the same piece with hardware.
Right.
And see how that came out. See if anybody could tell which one was which. And
had a Omnisphere up on your screen there, so
yeah,
that sounds wonderful.
Omnisphere is just incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
I mean, between that and the Yuhi stuff, those two are probably better than most real hardware synthesizers.
Yeah, Omnisphere is absolutely fantastic. It really is.
Yeah, everyone tells me, "Oh, have you got Omnisphere? You should get Omnisphere." I still haven't got it, and I don't know. There's something about it. I just
you need it.
I need
it. You need it definitely. You definitely need it. It just does everything. It's
hence the
really
name.
Does. Yeah, it does everything, and it's really good at it as well. Most of this movie score I've done with Omnisphere.
Yeah.
This time. Yeah.
So the funny thing is that we have a store over here called Guitar Center, which is extremely cringeworthy these days. But I just noticed I knew about Omnisphere for a while, but it was so dang expensive, and I never saw it on sale. And Guitar Center of all places had physical copies for $100 off. Wow. And so I actually went into a store and bought a package of software, and I was laugh about it. It's completely worth it. It was a great investment.
I wish I'd had a chance to do that. It took me about 3 or 4 days to download it. It was terrible.
Yeah, I think when I got BBC Symphony, it was they said, oh, it's because it's half a terabyte, over half a terabyte. And they said, yeah, it'll take forever. I thought, no, I've got a really good internet connection, but no, because obviously, the whole, all the stuff in the chain has to be pretty fast, and it wasn't, and that took forever. But it was worth it in the end. But yeah, I don't know. I'm sort of holding out on the Omnisphere thing, like you say. I don't think I can justify, unless, of course, with this new business, that it might be, off against that.
Well, I'm just waiting for the point where I can afford Keyscape now, because Omnisphere is that good.
Yeah.
Keyscape's got to be the next purchase, really.
Yeah. No, there's so much good stuff out there. Just haven't got money for it all, I'm afraid. But there you go. Anyway, what am I doing this week? Day job, mostly. And trying to sort out this business. So trying to set myself up as a business. I need to do that. And there is a main reason for doing that, and I can't say what it is yet. We're getting really close to announcing this thing, and I can't say. It's really frustrating. But it will.
And like when I get on the internet in the morning, I'm like, all right, hasn't come out yet.
Give it about 3 weeks. I think 3 weeks is, well, actually just under 3 weeks now. So fingers crossed. And so we're at the point now where the whole plan is in place. So the company that are behind it all have recruited specific members of staff to handle this whole thing, which is means that they're serious about doing it. So I'm kind of confident this is going to go on for a bit. And we've got stuff in the bag, we've got content and materials all ready to go, and we're now at the point where we're doing trailers and promotion, getting the whole promotional bandwagon thing.